to be a short message because of our fellowship time today. So we're going to do our very best to be obedient to that and actually be as short and succinct as possible as the Most High leads. All right, so again, first and foremost, as our beginning, welcome to Life Changers Great Awakening. Also, I want you to know about the newest book that's out, looking at our responsibility. Very important. Also, one in the past that I've just recently done as well, foundational elements. Also, cash information, tell information. But I want to get right to the point. Let's get right to our message today. How many of you guys are ready? I want to say this. That I'm not going to hit us with our traditional ways of looking at things today. We're going to look at this title that I'm going to title today's message. It's going to be a very provocative one, right? And I don't want to hit us with the traditional same old, but I want us to look at it from a different perspective because that's how the Most High showed me during this time. So I want to share that with you as he shared with me. So what we're going to look at today is Christmas, racism, witches, demons, and deception. I'm going to say it again. We're going to look at Christmas, racism, witches, demons, and deception. Now you may be asking yourself, what does witches have anything to do with Christmas? What do demons have anything to do with Christmas? And what does deception have anything to do with Christmas? And above all, what does racism have to do with Christmas? Because it's something that we don't think about. It's not something that's talked about. It's not something that's told over the pulpits of America. But it's something that I think that we've got to dive into and look at it for what it is, right? I don't know if you grew up like I did, but if they walk like a duck, act like a duck, and sound like a duck, it must be a quack quack. And the reality is that there's a lot of quack quack that's out there that's being told because we've all been told stories about Christmas. Since we were little, and from the very inception, we've been indoctrinated with this, especially if you're like me, who came out of Christianity, and these things were embedded, right? But I want to really expose some things today in this manner, dealing with this topic again, Christmas, racism, witches, demons, and deception. Now, let's begin with a couple of pondering questions that we can walk away with. Number one, is it biblical to worship Mashiach's birth on the birthday of the ancient sun gods? Is it? No. Question number two to ponder. Is it biblical to keep ancient pagan worship practices alive by calling them tradition? Number three, is it biblical to lie to children about a mythological figure's existence called Santa? Number four, is it biblical to ignore the festivals sanctioned in the scripture to keep holidays found nowhere in the Bible? Just a couple of questions for us to ponder before we even get into this message today. My question is, are you ready? Are you ready to hear about this? Because I am not going to talk about today, nor am I going to cover your traditional Christmas message. So we will not cover Saturnalia today. We're not going to cover Sol Invictus today. We're not going to deal with the birth of the unconquerable sun today. We're not going to deal with the Mithra, right? We're not going to deal with the Druids. We're not going to deal with Nimrod. We're not going to deal with Semiramis. We're not going to deal with Tammuz. Or we're not going to deal with Jesus is the reason for the season. All right, so if that's what you came and you thought you were going to hear, you're not going to hear about that today. There are plenty of messages that are out there about this. Again, I am not focusing on that today. That is not my mission for today. All right? So I ask you again, are you ready? Yes. All right, let's go. You're ready. Let's go. Here's how we're going to start. Is Christmas biblically commanded? The answer is emphatically, unequivocally, no. All right, so how do we know this? Christmas is not one of the 7 biblical holidays or holy days, right? We don't call them holidays, we call them holy days, right? The Creator told us to celebrate. So there are 7 feasts or Moedim that the Most High has commanded us to actually adhere to and to memorialize and actually celebrate. Now, we can see inside here we have this Hebrew, the months that are here, and then we also have the corresponding Gregorian calendar that is here, along with the feasts. All right? So when we see equivalent to December, which is right here, right? Of December 25th, which we're looking at, it is corresponding with the month of Kislev or Tebet. Okay? Now, with this being said, there are no biblical feasts celebrated during this time at all. Everybody can see that. In fact, we see three that is happening in the month of Tishri, known as the fall feast. Then you have the others in Nisan, which are known as the spring feast, and then in Sivan, which is known as Shavuot or Pentecost, that is happening right in the time of the end of May into the beginning of June, corresponding with the Gregorian calendar. So once again, we see no biblical mandate or command to do anything equivalent in the Gregorian calendar during the time of December 25th. So that leaves us to ponder the question, so what is really going on? What is really happening here? All right, so let's jump in a little bit more. In vain do they worship me. So Mark chapter 7 through 8 begins by saying this. How about in vain? Watch what it means by in vain. It means through the ideas of tentative manipulation. You can look this up. So through manipulation, they worship me. Through vain or through unsuccessful searches, do they worship me? Teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. Here's a commandment of men. It's Christmas. All right? It is not a doctrine of the Most High. It is a doctrine of men. For laying aside the commandments of Yah, the feast, the 7 feasts, ye hold on to the traditions of men. So my question is, are we to hold on to the traditions of men, or are we supposed to follow the commandments of the Most High? The commandments of the Most High. We do not want to be individuals that operate in vain, doing our own thing, following the traditions of men, but we want to follow the Most High. So I want us to understand from the very beginning that we, you and I, everyone here under the sound of my voice, and anyone that's listening, you got to understand that there's people trying to get in still. You have got to understand that we are called for such a time as this. We are called to do something. You want to know what it is? You and I are called unequivocally to destroy, to overthrow, to break, and to burn evil altars. I'm going to say that again. You and I have a commission to do such right now. I'm going to say it right from the beginning. You and I are called to destroy. Somebody say destroy. Overthrow. Somebody say overthrow. Break. Somebody say break. And to burn all evil altars. I'll say it again. You and I are called to destroy the altars. You and I are called to overthrow, to break, and to burn all evil altars. It is not something that you and I, as the people of the Most High, should be playing with. It's not something that we should touch and begin to become profane because of it. It's not something that we should even entertain. Watch what I'm saying here. We are called to this. Deuteronomy 12 says, these are the statutes and judgments which you shall observe to do in the land which Yahweh your Elohim of your fathers give thee to possess it. All the days that you live upon the earth. What days? All their days. You shall utterly what? Destroy all the places wherein the nations which you shall possess serve their God. So guess what? We're not supposed to do as the nations do. We're not supposed to do as the Goyim do. There's more people trying to get in. So we're supposed to destroy those places, right? Where they serve the gods upon the mountains, upon the hills, and under every green tree. Here's my question to you. Why would the Most High say on the high mountains? Why would he say on the hills and under every green tree? Why would he specifically say that? Because these are places of altars. These are places of evil altars that are in the earth realm. These demonic altars will be set up upon the mountains, the high places, on the hill places, and then also in the trees, under the trees. I don't know about you, but if anybody know anything about any type of cultural stuff, that they would do these particular pieces, go up to the mountains, go to the hill places. We even see this, right? The prophets were called to destroy these places, right? They were called to tear them down, not to leave them up. And you and I are called to do the same thing. But the question is, are we even able to recognize whether or not there's an evil altar that we're dealing with, right? So here's what we're going to do. Continue on. And you shall overthrow their altars, break their pillars, burn their groves with fire, and you shall hew down the graven images of their gods and destroy the names of them out of that place. You shall not do so unto Yahuwah. So you and I are called to burn, we are called to break, we're called to overthrow, and we're called to destroy evil altars in the earth realm. So guess what? I don't know about you, but some people, you'll see an altar set up where you'll see some stones put into place, and people will say, well, you better not touch that. You can just curses on that. No, the Most High has called me to destroy some stuff with the right given authority, right? If he called me to a place and he's commissioned me to go, and he's commissioned me to do it, and it's before me, I am equipped to do it, so destroy it. That's what we're called to do. Now let's get into the Christmas message. Now that we've given us a background here. Now let's get right into it. Number one, the origin and meaning of decorating Christmas trees. All right, we see this coming from the origin of Poland area. Now, decorating is one of the youngest Christmas traditions in Poland. It was brought to us from Germany in the 18th century. So everything that we do in the Americas was something that was brought to us by the seed of Japheth. And I'm going to go over this as we go on a little bit longer, all right? We're going to see the origin of these things and how it's tied to their deities and to their gods, to these altars that were brought to us to assimilate and to accept and to take as if it is something that we're just born into because we're American. The devil is a liar. Our kingdom is not of the kingdom of this world. Our kingdom and our allegiance and our place of homeland is with the Most High. Now, while we live in this land, we are told to what? Conquer. We're told to have dominion. We're called to destroy. We're called to burn, to break down, and to overthrow all these evil altars. So again, this was brought to us from Germany in the 18th century. At first, it was popular only in big cities. But when people started to decorate trees in their homes, although it was not accepted by, even back then, by the Catholic Church, right? It wasn't even something that was accepted by the Catholic Church at that time. Watch this, right from the beginning. It was caused by the fact that decorating Christmas trees was taken from pagans. Wait a second. So the origin of decorating Christmas trees came from the seed of Japheth, three of Poland and Germany specifically, right? Because if you know anything about my immigration, right? Because right now, if I were to ask most people in America, what is the biggest group of immigrants to ever come into America, most people will probably say Mexicans. But it's not true. The biggest group of immigrants to ever come into America were the Europeans. And not just the Europeans, a specific group of Europeans that were known as Germans. The Germans are the largest group of immigrants to ever possess America. And it is even to this day. Now watch this. Their influence has come into American culture, right? And we accept it by accepting the customs of the Germans. Watch what they did here, all right? It was caused by the fact that decorating trees was taken from pagans and was considered a magic ritual. And guess what? Witchcraft. There's people trying to come in. So we see that the origin of decorating trees had to come from Germany, right? The seed of Japheth. They did this from taking it from paganism. It was a magic ritual, and witchcraft was tied to decorating trees. We see this, right? The trees was a kind of talisman that should protect the house from evil spirits and keep family members safe. So when this custom came via the European nations, it was brought as a custom to America that many of us have been brought up with and thought that it was part of our culture. The devil is a liar. Ha-Satan is a liar. Watch this. Witchcraft, paganism, magic rituals, warding off evil spirits. So now the next thing I want to do with us is I want to hit some of these things quickly, just for the sake of time. But what does Christmas have anything to do with hanging socks? What does socks have to do with Christmas? What is this exposing the socks hanging tradition? Because many people, have anybody ever seen this? This is very traditional. The socks stuff in, and people put gifts inside. And usually it's over a mantle place, right? It's a fireplace, right? It's always over a fireplace. That's the tradition. But what does that have anything to do with anything? Right? How did that become a tradition? Why is it a tradition? Does anybody know? Well, I'm going to hit you up with something really quickly. And we're going to look at this witch.
Befana, the Witch of Christmas. This is an interesting character figure for us to look at because she defies many of the classic determinations that we would use for divine or extra supernatural beings. She is classified as a witch, which are typically working with demons or evil spirits, and she is associated with winter, freezing, death, but also gift giving and presents, and the Yuletide. She comes to us from the culture that developed in North Italy, and some mythology writes about her as being a demon or witch or winter spirit that was written about in myths and legends from that particular area. She is linked heavily to the winter solstice and the idea of gift giving, and in this capacity is considered to be a benevolent creature. She appears as an old woman and delivers gifts to children on Epiphany Eve, which is January the 5th. She is also known for being a very fearsome tormentor of anyone she chooses to make her victims. She's known to possess a home or personal item and can extend influence over pets and small children. But being popular in folklore is the myth that stands out about her the most, and her connection to the festival or the Feast of Epiphany, where she would fill the socks of children with candy and presents if you were good, and quite predictably, she would leave a lump of coal if these children were bad. Being herself a great housekeeper, many say she will sweep the floor of your home before she leaves. And in this culture, sweeping the floor meant sweeping away problems of the year, which was timely given that she came in around the winter solstice celebration, entering into a new year. Whether she was truly a witch or a demon or a lesser type of divinity, we'll only be able to discover through more lore. But obviously, the connections to the myth of Santa Claus and Christmas is written all over the body of what this mythology is about this particular creature. Although she takes the guise obviously as an old woman, but everything else falls in line. We will explore more connections that we see, which have very visible lines between different belief systems from people at different geographical areas. As always, we appreciate that you stop in and watch our videos at 911.
All right, so you can see that this woman, Bafana, was a witch that was tied to putting stuff inside the socks. It was a witch that was involved during this time in this tradition of putting socks over the mantelpiece. This all came from Europe, okay? So Bafana is an old woman or a witch who delivered gifts to children in a similar way as Satan or Santa Claus. I mean Santa Claus, and the three Magi kings, as it says. This folklore, there was a witch named Bafana who also takes the chimney route in order to deliver gifts. She is portrayed as riding a broomstick, right, covered in soot. Children often, watch what it says here. Watch this other tradition. Children often leave a small glass of wine or food out for her. So where do we get this tradition of leaving cookies and milk for Santa? Do you see that this was all tied to this belief system of this demon spirit, right? that was in line with what we have here. Now, if the children were good, they received candy and they were or a lump of coal if they were bad. Norwegians would have their belief that witches came out on Christmas Eve riding on brooms, so they hide all the brooms in their household before they go to sleep. But it just doesn't end there. There's another witch that's associated with the same thing by the name of Gryla, the Christmas witch. She is back in her origins is in Iceland. Gryla, the Christmas witch, was known as a female giant with an appetite for flesh of mischievous children. Right? She owns a huge, vicious cat who eats people who have not received, watch this, not received new clothes for Christmas. So again, if you didn't receive clothes for Christmas in exchange of a gift, in this culture, they believe that this spirit, this Gryla, this witch, this giant woman, right, a female giant, that this is what they would do, right? So as if they didn't have enough problems. A myth that sprung from the traditions, giving new clothes to those who finish all their chores before Christmas. Were you naughty or were you nice? Did you do what you were supposed to do or did you not? So all of these traditions are steeped in witchcraft and demonic activity. So we're going to go straight to the next one and we're going to explore racism in Christmas. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is look at this character that's known as Black Pete. And forgive me, my guy uses one curse word. Okay, so from this piece, even though it was somewhat comedic, there's truth to it because this is still what goes on today over in Europe, where all of this stuff came to America. Now, I gotta say this, they don't use Black Pete in America, right, as his helpers. We're gonna go into this a little bit more because there's more to Black Pete than what we think, right? This was just the beginning of this tradition where white people would put on blackface, and you wonder where blackface came from in America, right? You wonder where this whole image of Sambo came from, and being dark skinned with big lips, right, was seen as, oh, that's it's comedy and it's funny and it becomes part of entertainment, right? So we see here that this is something that comes and originates out of Europe. So we see these particular pieces. But the funny thing is that they would try to say that it was only because they came down the chimney. It's funny because, it's not racist, it's not this, it's not that at all. It's just our tradition. But let's go a little bit deeper into it, okay? But before that, let's look at another image of this.
2,000 years ago, the German god Wodan drove around on a white horse with two black ravens who eavesdropped on people through the chimney and tattled to their boss. That sounds familiar. And throughout history, there have been traditions where people paint themselves black around New Year's to impersonate the devil or to scare the kids.
Considered evil.
And then we have Saint Nicholas, who visits Dutch and Belgian households around December 5th. Hello. At first, he drops in alone. Well, him and his horse, of course. But in 1850, he gets a companion. That's when the storybook Saint Nicholas and His Servant appears. In these pictures, we see our good saint accompanied for the first time by a somewhat dark-skinned employee. Not that strange, really, because in those days, many distinguished people had colored servants. And by hiring this minion, Saint Nick can focus on his core business as a friend to all children, while his subordinate manages the old-fashioned bag and rob. At first, the black assistant is an idiot who can't even speak properly. But slowly, he evolves into a power Pete. The sometimes somewhat distracted good saint grows dependent on his skilled management assistant. And whether or not Pete is black from all that soot or not, it just wouldn't be the same without him.
Okay, so we can see here a little bit more about this image of Black Pete, right? Number one, he's exposing that this goes back to deities of foreign nations, right? So we see this. So we've seen witchcraft, we've seen racism, we see deities of other nations that brought about these traditions, right? And notice that it evolved from a horse, from a deity known as Odin or Wudan, depending on where you're coming from, or Udon, depending on where you come from, right? And notice it would take these kids in these bags, right? And notice that it was the Black Pete that would spank, and it was the Black Pete that did all the scaring, whereas now we have this Santa Claus, because that's what he was known first. Before it was Santa Claus, it was Santa Claus, right? And notice that he has the fish hat of Dagon, right? Another deity, right? Which is the same as Roman Catholic priests do, and they put on their hat the god of Dagon. We see that along with his staff and stuff, and he's seen and portrayed as this benevolent one, right? That is doing all these good things. All right, so we can see that this happens. Now, let's go a little bit deeper.
Every year around Halloween, Americans waste themselves.
All right, so before elves, because we see that we in American culture we brought up with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, right? And Santa Claus and his elves, the helpers, and everything like that. See, because they weren't elves at first, they were Black Pete before that, because they wouldn't be acceptable in America, because America would not necessarily like that so much. You understand? So now what we have here is we have this tradition that said, I got to make it more palatable for these Americans to take on, and we're going to switch it from this Black Pete person, but I'm going to go into that a little bit more because it didn't just end there. But Black Pete now, so we make it elves. So before the elves, Santa's helpers, there was Black Pete. So in Dutch tradition, Santa Claus was a helper, right? Who usually appeared in black-faced characters with large gold earrings and these exaggerated lips, according to a long-standing theory, all right, by this gentleman. And then it goes on, his equivalent in German Europe were originally presented as one or more enslaved demons. All right, so we understood that these Black Petes were considered what? Evil, right? And they were also what? Demonic, right? So these black individuals were enslaved demons. That's what they looked at. Hence, where else do we see this in modern religion and culture that affected with this same ideology? Mormonism. Mormonism would not allow you to become a what? A member, right? Because if you were a person of color, because you were what? Considered cursed, right? So they looked at anyone that was melanated as cursed. Everybody see this? So we could see the effects of this not only in society, but also in religion. So we could see the origins of these belief systems. So again, it was presented as one or more enslaved demons forced to assist. Guess who they had to assist? Their captors. Who were the captors? The Europeans. Right? These chained and fire sport demons, many or may have been redeveloped as black-skinned humans. Watch this. During the early 19th century in the Netherlands, in the likeness of Moors. Does anybody know who the Moors are? Mm-hmm. The Moors are dark-skinned people. They occupied the Iberian Peninsula, what we call the Iberian Peninsula now. Right? They came from northern Africa, dark-skinned individuals who moved and migrated and brought civilization onto the barbarians, the Europeans that had not been enlightened yet. And now here's the history behind that. So these Moors, they were both Muslim and they were also Israelites, right? So you had these individuals of both religions that came and brought their knowledge onto the European nations. Does this make sense? In fact, if you're ready to go do history, you can look and see that and you can do this even Google right now, you can go see that the first original individuals, even Queen Elizabeth I, you can look it up if you want, she was black. Look it up if you don't believe me. And I hate using the term black. Does everybody understand what I mean? So what I want you to see this in the ancient times, they were the nobility. The Moors were the nobility until that history was eradicated. Okay? But now the captors come in and now subjugate you and make you like peace. They make you evil, make you demonic, inferior, subject to. Okay? Everybody see this. So they were the likeness of the Moors who worked as servants of Saint Nicholas. Does everybody see this so far? So now, the German god Odin or Wodan, who that is? Who that is? Who that be? Right? So, in wider Germanic mythology and paganism, the god was known in Old English as Wodan. In Old Anglo-Saxon and in High German, right? Wotan, right? And then all ultimately streamed from the Proto-Germanic theomethod, right? The Lord of Frenzy. That's what it means. The Lord of Frenzy. So this is where Santa Claus comes from. All right? The Germanic deity known as Odin, right? Or Wodan, right? The Lord of Frenzy or the Lord of the Possessed. Well, we're going somewhere with this stuff, right? The Lord of Frenzy, the Lord of the Possessed, right? And he is known as the one-eyed All-Father. So when we say Father, who? What Father? What Father? So when we pray, Father God, for the locker terms. Number one, God is the God of fortune and of goodwill, right? God. That's a whole nother lesson. But when we say that, Father, who? What Father? Abba. Yahuwah. Who are we calling on when we say that? Do people even know who they're talking about? I know we're thinking that we're theologically correct because we're in alignment with the Lord's Prayer, right? The quote-unquote Lord's Prayer. By saying this, but who are you calling on? Did you know that maybe that this Father, the one-eyed Father, who sacrifices his eye in order to see everything that happens in the world, right? So he had to sacrifice one eye to be able to see the what? The all-seeing. Watch this. And he had two sons, Boldar, right? By his first wife, Frigg, and Thor. Anybody heard of Thor?
Yeah.
By Thor. Odin, Thor, and the other Norse gods were primarily worshipped by the Vikings, who were Scandinavian origin. However, the worship of these gods extended beyond the Vikings and also was practiced by the Germanic tribes, right? Such as, anybody heard of the Goths?
Yeah.
The Vandals?
Yeah.
The Saxons?
Yeah.
And the Franks?
Yeah.
Anybody ever heard of those individuals, those group of people that are out of Germanic languages, Germanic peoples? So we can look at the table of European nations that came out of Japheth, right, from Noah, and all of these nations we could see became down that were known as individuals that come and derive from Japheth, all the way down to where we see the Franks, the Romans, the Britons, the Albanians, the Goths, the Bengals, right? All of these individuals, right? We see all of those individuals, so we see that through heritage that we are looking at the seed of Japheth, or what is known as the fourth kingdom deception, dealing with Roman influence. So everything that's tied to Christmas is a deception of the fourth kingdom that's trying to deceive us and keep us in captivity and in bondage.
Honestly, now in England, they're originally German.
Yep.
They're German.
They were all family.
They're all family.
They're all
of
family.
them from France, all those European countries.
Yep. All the way into Russia, all of them. They're all family.
All of these people are family.
Yep, they're all family. So you're right. So with this, we see that we know this is part of the fourth kingdom because we studied it. But guess what their job was? And this is what from Genesis 15:12 from the Targum. It says, and the sun was going to set, and sound profound and sweet fell upon Abram. And Abram saw four kingdoms which should arise to bring his sons into what? Subjection. All right, so we see this and going down Edom, Rome, that is the fourth kingdom. All right, so we see this. Let's go on. What does it mean to be subject to someone? Is when a person or government, somebody say government, forces other persons or people or groups of people to submit or to be controlled. I don't know about you, but governments are all about controlling through their policies and their procedures and all about their dictation, right? Of what you have as choice or what you can do and what you cannot do. And if you do too much of this, we're going to silence you. Right? Rewrite the history books, right? Because we can't talk about slavery no more. Because we don't want any uprising. We don't want any black messiahs. We don't want individuals to rise up. We don't want people to rise up and know who they are. Matter of fact, where's my thing I sent you? Did I send it to you? Can I see my phone real quick? I think I sent it to Angela. I'm going to read something to you real quick. Watch this. This is off script, but I'm going to read something to you real quick. I want you to pay attention to this. Man, let me see. I sent it to my son earlier. Watch this. We often are told history from a certain perspective, a perspective that people want you to know. And I want you to listen to what I'm about to say. Hitler said this, right? I mean, Hitler, the evil man, right? Hitler, the evil man that killed all these Jews, right? All these Ashkenazi Jews, to be specific, right? Watch what he says here. Hitler said, because the white Jews know that the Negroes are the real children of Israel and keep America secret, the Jews will blackmail America. They will extort America. Their plan for world domination wouldn't work if the Negroes knew who they were. The white citizens of America will be terrified to know that all this time they've been mistreated and discriminated and lynching the children of Yasharel. They will fear God will destroy them as they destroyed Egypt for doing the same thing. So the elite, the Illuminati, keep this a secret at all costs. After I die, I will one day cause World War III just by this message, which will be like planting a seed in a people's minds until it sprouts once they nurture that seed and seek more truth and learn that Hitler was right. Did you catch what he said?
Yes, sir.
This fourth kingdom is a real thing that is trying to subjugate and control the people of Yasharel from truly knowing who they are. Now, there are many kinds of control that can be called subjection, but it most often describes a political rule or a subjugation of a large group of people, it says. Slavery, watch this, slavery is one terrible extreme type of subjugation, and a king's conquering of a neighbor king is another type. Subjugation comes from the old French subjection, submission, inferior conditions, captivity, right? Led from the Latin root, right, to put under. So we see that truly has been the condition of many that have found themselves in a diaspora throughout the nations. Now they got rid of the video. Oh, it was working earlier. Interesting. So Christmas lyrics and demonic ties. Christmas lyrics and demonic ties. Now, you better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town. He's making a list, checking it twice. Gonna find out who's naughty or nice. That whole thing, how many of you guys ever sang that? How many of you guys ever heard it? Mm-hmm. Do you know the video is no longer there? I don't know why. I just got rid of it that quick because I did this morning and it was working. I don't recall. But here's the thing. All of this is tied to demonic influence. We are singing carols and singing songs that have demonic ties to it. Demonic ties to it. But it's innocent in the name of Christmas. I mean, after all, it's the reason for the season. So again, introducing the one and only Krampus. Now, this is an evolution of Black Pete.
Yeah.
Again, this is an evolution of Black Pete. And then you get Dr. Seuss that plays off of it, Krampus, that stole Christmas. Right? This is all in front of our faces, but do we really pay attention to it? Okay? Now, who is Krampus and what does he have to do with Christmas? Krampus comes from Europe. It is a half goat and half demon monster that punishes misbehaving children at Christmas time. Did you not catch that story that we just read?
Yep.
He is the devil's companion. Watch this. He's the devil's companion to who? Saint Nick. Right? And if you look at Saint Nick in the dictionary, it's actually Satan.
Yes.
Every December, Santa Claus comes out and gives presents to good children around the world, according to popular culture. But according to some myths, children who have misbehaved are instead visited by a far more frightening creature that's known as Krampus. Krampus would often target children who behave badly, hitting them with a tree branch known as a switch. Anybody ever grown up, ever been beat with a switch?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think that came from? All right? Or even kidnapping them in a basket. All right? Krampus is a mythological creature who is often depicted with horns and demon-like face. According to myth, which likely originated in what is now Germany and Austria, the creature punished children who behave badly. Krampus is also called, I'm not going to name those names, right? But it's a word similar to devil, Satan. Okay? Now, assimilation accepting of foreign gods. Krampus was thought to have been part of pagan rituals for the winter solstice. According to legend, he was the son of Hel, the Norse god of the underworld. Do you catch all this demonism, witchcraft, Satanism, all of this stuff that we're talking about that's tied to Christmas? With the spread of Christianity, though, Krampus became associated with Christmas, right? Again, Black Pete, Krampus, and now elves. They had to make it more palatable for people to accept it. Despite efforts by the Catholic Church. Now, December 25th was first identified as the date of Jesus' birth by Sexton Julius Africanus in 221, and later became the universal accepted date, right? Now, the accepted date comes later, but he's the one that was like, yo, we need to get this going. One widespread explanation of the origin of this date is that December 25th was, guess what it says? The Christianizing, right? The Christianizing of the Die Solis Invictus Nati, right? The day of the birth of the unconquerable sun. A popular holiday, guess what? In the fourth kingdom? The Roman Empire. Edom. Do we see this? Do we see how this is all tied to deception, demonic activity, witchcraft, demons, and racism? We never thought of Christmas being tied to racism. We never looked at Christmas as being tied to witchcraft, to demonism, right? We never looked at it that way. But it's right in front of our face. Yes. Well, Leo Africanus. Yep. So, Pope Christianized paganism. So, Pope Julius I decided to establish a date for the celebration of the birth of Jesus, right? Yahusha, as the actual time of year for this event was unknown. The Pope decided to assign the holy day to December 25th. There had long been a pagan, guess where it is, pagan, I'll say it again, pagan midwinter festival at that time of the year, and the Pope hoped to use the holiday to what? Christianize the celebration. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like, you could be dirty, but let me throw this jacket over you and hide it. But it don't mean that you're still not dirty. Does that make sense? Now, the fourth kingdom, demonic seduction and doctrine of demons. December 25th is the date that the Roman pagan festival inaugurated in 274 as the birthday of the unconquerable sun, which the winter solstice began again to show the increase in light. Sometime between 336, the church in Rome, unable to stomp out this pagan festival, spiritualized it at the Feast of Nativity of the Son of the Righteousness. Do you see this? All Roman Catholic, Fourth Kingdom, Edomite background. Does that make sense? Seed of Japheth. Do we see this? Very clear. Our warning and our mandate. 1 Timothy 4, verse 1 and 7. Now the Spirit, the Ruach, speaks expressly that in latter times some shall what? Depart from the faith. Emunah, giving heed to what? Seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. That's what he said. Many will fall away from the faith because of seducing spirits and doctrines of demons or devils. Did you see that? Do we see Christmas, or have we ever seen Christmas as a seducing spirit and a doctrine of devils?
The spirit of Christmas.
Right? We've been told it's the spirit of Christmas. Well, what spirit? Now that we've exposed it for what it is, notice what he says in verse 7. He says, but refuse. Somebody say refuse.
Refuse.
You better refuse.
Refuse.
It says, but refuse profane and old wives' fables or myths, and exercise thyself rather unto godliness. Okay? Now, but refuse profane? What's profane? Babylos. Babylos. Did you catch what it sounds like? Babylos. Did you catch what it sounds like? Babylos. The word profane means in Greek, babylos. What does it sound like? Okay, babylos, right? Right? From this base, that means a threshold. Watch this. A threshold. Crossing the doorway of wickedness. So to be babylos or to be profane, when he says refuse the profane, right? So what he's saying is don't you go cross over the threshold and come into covenant with demon spirits. Don't you cross the threshold. Don't you cross the access. Don't cross the doorway in becoming one and accepting the doctrines of demons. Did you catch what I just said? All of this season is about witchcraft. It's about demon spirits. It's about racism. It's all there. But we've never seen it from this perspective before. Trying to cause the people that are holy to become evil and tainted and wicked by following in the traditions of men and seducing spirits and doctrines of demons. We are called to walk in righteousness and true holiness, right? Be renewed in the ruach of your mind, right? Because without a mind transformation, there cannot be what? A life transformation. I'll say it again. Without a mind transformation, there cannot be a life transformation, right? So, and you are to put on the new man, which after Yah has created righteousness and true holiness, therefore putting away lying, speaking every man truth with his neighbor, for we are members of one another, being angry and sin not, let not the sun go down on your wrath. And this is what he says, neither give place to Hasatan. We cannot give place to Hasatan at all. The next thing is, will you listen? Genesis 35:2. Put away the strange gods that are among you and be ye clean. 2 Corinthians 6:14 through 16. For what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion hath light with darkness? And what concord hath Christ with Belial? And of what part hath he that believeth with an infidel? And what agreement hath the temple of Yah with idols? Who are we coming in agreement with? When we do as the world does and we practice what they practice, we come in agreement with it. 2 Corinthians 6:17 says, come out from among them and be ye separate. Touch not the unclean, the profane things. And guess what he says? And I will receive you. How many people are practicing things, doing things, and say, well, it's not going to hurt anybody. It's not that serious. It's just Christmas. Without knowing its background. Touch not any unclean thing, he says. The problem is, whose job was it to tell the difference between the clean and the unclean, the holy and the profane. It was us, the people that are called to teach the word of the Most High. We don't have voices that's standing up today, that's going on around the world today, because guess what? Today, tomorrow, and the next day, you're going to have candlelight services, you're going to have Christmas Eve services, you're going to have all these days of nativity scenes, and everybody's going in, flocking in, they're looking ready for their gifts, not knowing that it's tied to demonic stuff, not knowing that it's tied to witchcraft, not knowing that it's tied to all this paganism. But let's accept it in the name of Christianizing everything and assimilating into a culture that the Most High says don't even learn from the nation. Don't even ask how they serve their God. Don't you do me like that, he said. Don't come in agreement. Be separate. And that's what I leave you with. And I pray that you've been blessed through this message. I pray that it means something to you. I pray that it clarifies some things from before you. And again, I know that it's not the traditional